And welcome back to another fantastic homeless romantic podcast. Today I've got an old friend of mine, artist, musician, Renaissance man, Chad Moe, who resides down in New Orleans. Chad Moe, you spent a bit of time traveling, making art, going all around the world. You've been to Brazil, Indonesia, the moon, spreading the gospel of art and music, or
aliens.
We're
all aliens.
Start from the beginning. Where are you from?
I was born in the Midwest. I traveled all over the United States as a kid. My father was a top 40 rock and roll DJ. So I lived in the swamps, and I lived in the desert, and went back to the plains lands. Then I left home when I was about 16, 17, and ended up in California, New York, hopping freight trains, jumping around everywhere. But I pretty much stayed in New York for about 11 years. Then I moved here about 21 years ago. So that's the whole story. That's my American experience.
Where is here?
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Sorry. Very good. Sorry. So the first chapter is California. And so do you remember how long ago that was, what year that was that you were out in California? Because I know that
1990, 89, 90 maybe. Yeah. But it was always a thing, you know. I skateboarded all my life when I was a little kid, and then growing up, traveling everywhere. It was always go to California. So I did. And I got into punk rock, and, you know, I rocked the Mohawk and hung out down there with another friend of mine. Made it to Haight-Ashbury. Stayed in Golden Gate in the front park. Squatted at 5th and Shipley downtown. It was all tweakers and junkies. Downtowns in America, all the cities were still kind of abandoned free-for-alls back then. So it ain't like today at all. It's the exact opposite. So, you know. But yeah, it was very rough and violent, actually. It was more violent in California. You walk down the street, somebody just beat you upside the head for no reason. So I got out of there, went to jail a few times for hopping trains, made it to Oregon finally. And then, yeah. Long story short, I ended up staying in New York. I didn't like California too much.
Well, is it the mentality of the people? You have West Coast people and East Coast people.
Yeah, and then, you know, through my teen years to, you know, 27, 28, that's kind of where I really grew up, was Manhattan, and I squatted, and I lived with a huge community, and we popped locks on tenement buildings and moved people in, and it was very controlled anarchy, if anything else. So then, you know, growing up in that environment, learning carpentry, learning real skills that carried me on through life, and I got my degree in carpentry and masonry, plumbing, and all that stuff through Ivy Tech. Way later, went back to New York, did more work. But yeah, there's a museum there.
Yeah, this was what we're talking about is a very infamous among squatters and stuff, as one of the most important and influential squats in the later part of the 20th century. We're talking about C squat and that area, and the squats that happen to be around that area. And this is in a time when
in the United States, you couldn't really squat like that anywhere in the United States. That's what I meant about the cities being free-for-alls. I tried. Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, you know, even Louisiana when I was a kid, squatted all these different places. Not the same thing. Not organized like it is in London too, I guess.
Well, there was you had a certain amount of rights if buildings weren't being used in Manhattan. And
no, not so much we had rights. What we did, though, is we had a community that fought back, and I actually grew up watching the police retreat, if you want to get literal about it. I mean, the only way that people got to do anything was because they fought back. So we did defend against the police and came to a victory. And that's something that, you know, people cannot understand today ever. You know, I mean, to be honest. And the city would pop these holes in the top of 7-story buildings. So over the years, all of the floors had collapsed. So what we were doing was massive amounts of work with these huge rubble carts every day, just floors of buildings worth of rubbles, hundreds of years worth of rubble. And so nobody went down there anyway. The police was the Latin kings in Alphabet City. Here in America, all the heroin and the drugs and the guns is all issued by the police to the inner cities. Always has been. And crime rates went way high. So when you lived in it, you knew it. There was no second guessing it. And you also watched it. So either way it goes, somebody's policing you. I had to ask permission to if I want to do construction on a certain block. But then that's what community is. Not because we all play accordion. We have an online community, but the people you actually live next to that you ain't got nothing in common with and you have to get along. To me, that's what the word community is. It's really how one had to prove oneself to live in neighborhoods or else you couldn't live there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're a bad person, they would weed you out. Whereas downtown San Francisco and the West Coast in general was already inundated with tweakers and meth addicts, and so there was no organizing over there.
Yeah, people from specifically the hobos and freaks.
Experience.
The freaks from California were more disconnected from reality, while people from the East Coast or the Rust Belt, the punks and the hippies, had to be more direct and logical and realistic.
Well, it's what I've realized from all my travels in the world. Where I travel in the world is by large bodies of water. All the cities by the bodies of water bring large amounts of information. That was the internet before the cables under the ocean floor and all the satellites in space. People went on boats to other lands historically, even before everybody's history book says so. And, that's what pretty much I did the same thing. I mean, the difference is California was the last, if you're not counting Spain, but for American English colonization across, whereas New York was the first. So literally in that park, Tompkins Square, and that movement I was involved in is where Emma Goldman spoke. And, all of the anarcho history existed there, to be more precise. Yeah.
So what was the end of C Squat? How did that story wrap up?
There was no real end of anything. What ended up happening was 11 buildings went legal through an organization of UHAV, and it's a homesteading organization. It's been around for over 100 years in New York City. All because of those reasons I was talking about: stabilized rent, housing issues. These things have been going on for a long time. Landlords used to murder people, burn people out of their buildings and things like that. They even tried that on us. They tried to burn us out of Dos Placos and hired a local arson. I woke up to flames. So, this is not just the 1800s. It's like it was still a thing. So, these are reasons why. Where I live in New Orleans, it's one of the few, in Louisiana too, it's one of the two only states in the United States that tenants have absolutely no rights. And landlords are getting away with murder down here. It's disgusting. And you talk to the average Joe, and they all own in properties that are $250,000 and, protect the landlord my ass. I mean, it's just slummy down here, and people are getting $2,000 a month rents for nothing. Like, it's disgusting. So all of this was already set up way before the squatter movement, even of the 60s and, whatever that happened in Lower East Side Manhattan, to its abandonment and dereliction on purpose, might I add, one more time. So, but yeah, they all went homesteading. So everything's apartmentalized. Same thing happened in Germany and Berlin, 1992. All the squats went legal after the wall. I mean, everywhere I travel in the world, too, is usually squats that are organized, because it ain't just an American, obviously, squatting, and they called them the diggers in Old English, medieval times. The reason of the word, do your history, and you study Rome, you study England, then you understand, like, where Middle Ages and the Catholic Church and who made kings. They were all God on earth. And everybody who was a landlord had a right to your firstborn daughter, and your firstborn son was conscripted to the army. And I mean, just endless no rights. that we have all been used to paying and working and paying and working and being taxed to just live on the land of the landlord. So, but just imagine the times before that, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what happens in the squats. You got lots of people in these tenements. We had meetings every week. You had to show up every week, every Sunday for work week, sometimes 2-3 months before you even got a key to get into place. It was not, you know, chaos like people think at all, you know. And it was very, very, very diverse. Yeah, you know, some squats had more Native Americans in it. Some squats had, you know, but still, it was very, by today's standards, I gotta say. So I grew up playing like congas with the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans and learned all this stuff with African Americans and playing all that time and just being around it. That's what carried my music to New Orleans. You know, now I'm a drummer. I still play congas. I live in the Voodoo Alley Temple. I used to play there too. I learned the Orisha rhythms. All of it comes from that neighborhood. So
so obviously you left New York at some point and then made your way to New Orleans and then settled in New Orleans. What was that story? How did you get from Manhattan to New Orleans?
I was traveling and I went to Brazil, and it was near the end of the Giuliani administration. So there was already a lot of like evictions and big sweeps by the police. I have the newspapers still too. It was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of police officers. Never before in the history of New York. Everybody became a cop. They even used Yankee Stadium to do the training grounds, I remember. So all of a sudden you started seeing 19-year-old cops arresting old professors for smoking joints in the park. You know, it was weird. So I went with my friend, and he was a squatting, and we went to Brazil with some other friends. And I was already doing street art a lot, so I went on a street art tour pretty much up the coast, studied Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, lived there for a while, a few months here, there. Went down to Amazon, went to Manaus, did all that, you know. In Sao Paulo, I was a painter for a hip-hop band called Testemunhas da Periferia, Testimony of the Ghetto. And there they squat the outside of the city. They build the entire cities out of brick. So it's kind of like the largest occupation in the world besides like India. And that's not really an occupation. That's more of a religious conscript belief system.
Are you talking about the Romanis?
No, just in general, poverty is so big in Brazil. You know, the slave port there in Salvador, I hung out there and played music there and did a lot of artwork there with other local graffiti artists in a place called Pelourinho, which means whipping post. And there is still the whipping post. I mean, the amount of slavery that came into Brazil, I was told to me, and I looked it up, is more Africans that live in Bahia in the north, Nordeste, than any nation state in Africa, save for Nigeria today. And what happened in the United States was just a tail end of the tail end, horrid as it is. But the massive amount of diversity that has already existed in northern Brazil, so many skin tones, so many years, you know, so much of a class war too, where just like it's New York, it didn't matter so much in tone. We are all in this together. It's obvious when it was obvious. Now all this pretend money, everybody gets checks for nothing. It ain't so obvious.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brazil. So I was there and I got exposed to Candomblé. You know, was painting these big murals at their concerts of this Angola woman with a machine gun and a baby in her arms from Africa. And I got in that, and then everything changed after that. I was exposed to Jimaya. And I live now in the city in New Orleans. The Mississippi is Jimaya. The lake is Oshun. You know, it's very much ingrained in the culture here.
Carnival.
No, Carnival, yeah, all of it. Yeah, all of it. Art, beauty, music. I mean, that's what I'm attracted to the most.
Did you get to go to Bahia?
Yeah, I lived in Bahia. And I also stayed in Belém at the mouth of the Amazon. Lived with two older witches. One was 86 and one was in her 50s. And they both had 30-year-old boyfriends, might I add. I'll never forget that. They had these big parakeets. I got photos. It's funny. But it was so great. It was like an international hostel, and we all went out. Everybody spoke. Some people spoke 5-6 languages in there. She took us to Fohol, which is a traditional like country thing, and everybody checks their guns on the boat. and you get on a boat and they got these big hats and everybody's dancing. Man, I had a great time. But Brazil changed my life. Most accepting, loving people, high in death, high in love. That's the way New Orleans was too, especially pre-Katrina. I mean, over the years, everything's been so gentrified here. But I still have a lot of connections in Brazil. I still talk to my friends there. Whenever I freak out, I keep thinking about I've been wanting to go to Europe and get out of here because it's getting bad in America with just people's belief systems and overriding truth and logic. So once again, on all sides, it's getting like, it's very obvious the divide and conquer right now more than ever.
Right.
You don't have to read Noam Chomsky to figure it out, but the same concepts in manufacturing consent are being used right now by us. We become the media. You just replace the words there and then bang, there you are. And like I said, but before this interview, and I was talking to you, people putting their face on videos to be an influencer. They have nothing to do with the intelligence that's going on behind them. They're just, their heads there going, oh, expressions. It's an insane world I live in. I can't get over that. That's just the most phony crap shit I've ever seen in my life. But everybody accepts it because it's the new generation to where people don't even question how they even get alternative media or I don't know.
Well,
I really don't know. But anyway,
we're living through a time right now when technology is so amazing to people that we've lost that generation of people who used to squat, not trust the government, travel around aimlessly, take psychedelic drugs, break the law. Now it's like you said, manufactured consent. Now it's manufactured outrage, to where it keeps us divided.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A long time ago when I left New York, I mean, it was even a felony if you got caught in protests. So, I mean, that was enough right there. 18-year-olds that we were housing stuff, I don't know how much I should be saying on this. But, geez, I mean, it's just bad. It's just bad. Like, you're protesting with freaking puppets or something, and all of a sudden you got a felony and you're 19 years old. You can never leave the United States the rest of your life. Like, what the hell? To me, that's one of the biggest freedoms since, I'm a freedom thinker, is just to be able to get the heck out of a place, And I grew up that way. I never grew up in a city, never grew up in a state. So everywhere I lived in America as a child, it was the same shit I'm dealing with now. It's the same shit I'll deal with until the day I die. You ain't from here. We don't like you. Doesn't matter. Elementary schools, junior high, and what high school I did go to. I mean, it's just, and then you travel. Some countries are less like that. You go to Denmark, they're like, oh, well, we know what it's like to travel. You can stay as long as you stay one night on our property and leave the next day. So we use those laws. Or here's a place to stay because you're traveling. Ungdom or something in Copenhagen. There's all these places and things set up, but not in the youngest country in the world with every single nation in it. It is so uncivilized for all of its technologies. Yep. It's bad.
Well, with every leap in technology, what we have is a rise in fascism. It happened at the turn of the last 20th century, and it's happening again. Right. Anytime that there's a leap in technology that makes an entirely new group of people extremely wealthy and changes how we think and how we do things, people get a little overexcited, and you see the rise of fascism. It's not a coincidence.
And you no longer have to worry about things communally. That's already been broken down by the internet. And for 20 years of my childhood, it was don't watch TV because you don't do anything. You don't make change. And all of your mind and your opinions and everything you say is already somebody else's. Well, it's no different. It's just now that we all got TVs in our pocket, obviously. To talk to my friend in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the information, the manipulation of the information is the same, but the package it comes in is much more exciting. So people forget that it's probably bullshit.
Well, and at the same time, as an artist, I'm moving in. I got a business. I have to do the thing. I'm working on my NFTs, Owlman Studio, and my Twitter accounts. All these things I've never done. I got a partner. I got people working with me, showing me how to use the computer and stuff because they love my artwork and they're throwing it. And if I don't do it, already my friend told me about Bitcoin 10 years ago. I was a drummer on a label. I flew to Argentina, did some gigs there. She's really smart on the computer stuff, studied under people and everything, told me to do it. I didn't do it. She owns a house. She has a big, huge recording studio. She got a nice big car with too many cameras in it, Bitcoin. dude. And then I guess last month there was something about the World Summit and all the leaders talking about the economic forum. And so all the presidents of the earth, and they're trying to push the one world currency. And it's obviously been allowed to go on through all things like crypto. So it's now just being called crypto trading.
Well,
so the one world is already in effect. It's just called crypto.
So
trying to finalize that out. Like PayPal just started that on my ads too,
right?
Trying to get me to trade crypto. And the fact that I even have PayPal is insane. I didn't have a car or a bank account for 5 years of my life. I was done with it,
Yeah.
Never. Well, even for the 20 years I lived here, I never signed a lease. I talked to people and I could do work with my hands, so I never had to worry.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out. It's bad. See, I told you that's why I didn't want to talk about this stuff.
Well, to be absolutely fair with you, that all that cryptocurrency and the Bitcoin started out with a very good idea, which was that the way that it is made makes it so it's more secure than traditional fiat currency in the fact that it's decentralized. Yeah. But what they don't tell you, and all the people who are really into it, what they don't tell you is if an institution like PayPal or big banks or any of these people, what they call whales, if they own a majority of that cryptocurrency, it doesn't matter that it's decentralized and all this stuff. The fact is they can manipulate its price if they own the majority of it.
So basically a federal world bank has less control.
And so when you see people like PayPal, when you see people
that made it.
right. When you see people like PayPal adopting it, like all the banks and stuff fought it. And when they finally adopted it, that was the moment people should have raised their eyebrows and said, that's a little fishy. Now I don't want it.
Yeah.
But you're lucky.
I'm going into it. I have to get Manhattan bank account my partner set me up with. I mean, it's real. We're going to make money on this. Everybody around me that's a 20-year-old is buying these houses. Nobody's local here anymore. They all cost $1 million. Everybody I meet, they got a new word for it. Hipster, this, that, whatever, punk. I mean, they used to use derogatory terms on me when they didn't know what weird was. Tattoos and piercings was enough to call you every slur in the world. But anyway, so now I can't compete.
Yep.
Hell, I can't even go live in the country. So I am studying Welsh, though. Whoa. So maybe I can go be a citizen of Wales. I'd love to go live in Wales. I hope that somebody in Wales is listening to this.
What made you?
Huh?
What? That's the weirdest thing is why did you want to study Welsh? What made you want to study Welsh?
Oh, I used to think I was Irish. I always knew I was Gaelic, but I got my DNA, and then it came back that I was Welsh. So I spent a lot of time studying Welsh, and then I looked it up online, and they were like, "Yeah, if you're a certain percentage and you did it through Ancestry.com, you can become a citizen or something." But I'm learning to. I sing. I do a lot of sing-song stuff. A lot of men do that in Wales, I guess. We'll see what happens. Anything that's not like a Brythonic language. Back to what I like to study and all the esoteric occult stuff that I collect, it very much influences my art to the point where all I do is nature paintings at this point. I don't, you know what I mean? So it's, being able to speak a language too that has nothing to do with the Latin base, the same base that made all the kings gods on earth and had rights over your soul, landlords. I mean, it's kind of kind of important to me. And I've been following what's going on over there with homesteading. And there's all kinds of people got little tiny houses. They're allowing it and all these cool things where all these other nations are shutting it down. Wales has always kind of been like what I experienced in Copenhagen and Christiania and stuff like that.
I've been there.
I haven't been there. Yeah, me too. Many times in Christiania. Played gigs there. When I first went there, I was trying to expatriate. There, I said it. And so I went through the back, and met people, knocked on doors. I was like, I'm a squatter from New York, help. They took me on a tour. They showed me where none of the tourists going to go and all the little Smurf houses and the boats. And, oh, my God, beautiful, beautiful. Self-sustaining community, everybody living next to each other, gardening, food not a problem, nothing a problem. The earth gives, you organize, done. Perfect.
Yeah.
Vegan restaurants, skateboard parks. I mean, it is just...
I Christiania is an amazing place because it's not just a squat, it's an entire section of town that they have called their own. And when I went there, I went and got a beer, went to the cafe, got a sandwich,
Yeah.
got some hash, which they sell by burning barrels. That way, if the police come, they take all the hash and just throw it into the burning barrel and get rid of the evidence. And they even had a sauna, which was, as you can imagine, like a squat house in Detroit might have a sauna. It was pretty awesome. I think they burned garbage in order to get the room hot, but it was cool. Cool way to live.
Yeah. Just seeing those things too, and that's what I saw too in Brazil in the north. I went to a squat city. People had been murdered there 3 years before, but they built an underground pool. I met the leaders, all this cool stuff. Taking over entire cities, and like making your own city in the wood and doing that. You can do that. I got to go to those places, in my life, and New York was the springboard for that, for sure.
When in your time,
a lot of Miami going.
In your time in New York, so you got exposed to Puerto Rican culture and African American culture and stuff like that. Was there ever a time in your travels, when you were traveling across the United States, that you were either hassled by the police or feared for your life? Because these, of course, make the best stories.
This is I know, right? Well, let me just say it like this: for all the times before the EU and after the EU that I went to Europe and hung out with punk bands and squats from Holland to everywhere, everywhere I went, all the major cities, I hung out with Eastern European punks because we have more of that same suffering, getting beat, getting thrown in jail for nothing all the time. Even the bulls in a train yard used to be horrid. I don't know. All these kids now, college kids looking all it. But now, and when I was a kid, I watched a guy get murdered on the train tracks when I was a kid. No joke. I got beat by the inside of my knees. I mean, when I get drunk when I was a kid in Europe, all I did was hang out with Eastern Europeans, especially in the Western Europe, because for all that they talk, none of them had the experience of what it was like to actually get beaten and attacked for being poor. I get locked up in every state in the United States, $4.75. I think it was the same amount as the Haley Bot people. That's why I remembered it, by the way. That cult where everybody had to murder each other. They had to have that amount for the toll. I think that's why they got that toll number, was because that was the amount you had to have on your person, or else you could get picked up for vagrancy.
Wow.
And so that happened to me many times. Or if you don't have ID, you go to jail. The state makes money. Each state makes money off of your poor broke ass walking through it without anything.
Yeah.
Very much Eastern European. I even went to an Eastern European bar that was super punk, super direct action, hardcore, in Holland one time, in Amsterdam, on the outskirts. And any shit on the walls, true story, they had one photo on this huge mirror. And I was there with my other old friends, Joey and Missy and everybody from Alaska. And I looked and I was like, I know that motherfucker. And it was my friend, Oprah Dingle. They love him. He has the most American experiences of that from the 60s on. He was dropped off at a gas station when he was 8. He had made friends with all those people in there. And once they knew that I knew him, we all became best friends, And that's how I know Okra, too. We went to jail together doing the concrete. We were in New York. And they were like hitting us and being like, you're so stupid. Those bags are $3 a piece. But, that's how I met Okra a long time ago. There his picture was. I swear, the only picture on the wall, too. They just idolized this guy. He squatted in Russia, dude. He ate dog. I mean, just tons of shit. Just things that you did, stowaways on boats, stowaway on a plane, squatting above a family, while they live in there and stuff, like all kinds of crazy
Those were always the guys that were the most inspirational to me. Was the guy I met a guy one time. He was from Bristol in the UK, and he was inside of a shipping container going through the Indian Ocean. And for a guy like me, when he made it to San Francisco, I met him in San Francisco. This guy, he taught all my friends. He taught all my friends how to busk and everything. He was shameless and just an incredible human being.
Yeah. Those are my mentors, thank God, from the hippie movement. People know all about hippies, and people know all about yuppies, but they don't know about the yippies, and there's a reason why. That's pretty much the white people, pretty much of the direct action that hung out with the Black Panther Party. So they were my mentors. They were there with Abby Hoffman. They were there from the Chicago 6 or 7, I think it was. I can't remember. All the old Stixie stuff. So when I was a kid in New York, my mohawk, we were throwing bricks. When I first moved to Times Square Park, we were throwing bricks at the Christadora, because Iggy Pop lived in there, and that was a yuppie son bitch. I was a teenager, man, like whatever, just going nuts. And starting barrel fires to stay warm. We used to battle the fire department, and the cops. We'd start a fire on the other side of the park just so that they would go to that one so we could stay warm with everybody over there. Run around, tell everybody in all the tents, all the Vietnam vets, mostly war vets, come on this side and we'll start a fire over there, keep you warm, because it was cold in the winter. Stuff I lived there too. So anyway, got me talking about squats.
Did you have a good
book you can read about it that I lived in? Huh?
Did you have a good rapport with the home? Did you have a good rapport with the home bums in the area at the time?
You were one. There was no separation. When you're on that level, you're on that level. That's what I mean before. When you're on poverty row, you're on poverty row. Like, there's no like, oh, I've got privilege because of, gender, tone, anything like. That's what class is.
Yeah. I can remember waking up in the lower Ninth Ward and just getting with the really backwoods Cajun neighbors and getting up at 10 a.m. and just starting to drink every morning because they were our neighbors.
Yeah.
And we were they rented us a house that it turned out to be an abandoned house, and they were just charging us rent for it.
Yeah, these kids are stupid enough. Sure, okay. Here's the money. Yeah, I know, it's bad. Dog eat dog world.
Yeah.
And on the streets there's a lot of crime and everything too, of course. And so, it's just a different world. Back when I was a kid too, everywhere I traveled on the streets in the United States, there was a lot of Vietnam vets and Vietnam flashbacks. I seen cops come in and try to deal with people and just give up, walk away because they were just overly, I come from a time when the police weren't so relentless like today. You can't, and the internet and everything, the Facebooks and everything, the Book of Faces, the FBI started that during that Yippie movement too. So the Black Panther Party, the Yippies, these were called the Book of Faces. I mean, the whole thing is owned by and operated CIA, KGB, blah, blah, blah. It's all, duh, except that every single body's a willing participant. Let me just get on there and talk about how much I hate all these things, even though it's run and operated by these people. Tap, 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 tap. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's insane.
Here we are incriminating ourselves on the tape too.
Yeah, I mean, here it is. I don't care. They already know me. I know them. We all in it,
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Stop me from leaving? Doubt it.
Yeah. I've come this far.
So I can't even live here. I get pushed out with the rents and everything, and America's becoming too expensive. I don't want to. I mean, if it costs that much to live in the bum effing nowhere, as much as it does in a major city, then really. And I got, the healthcare and the education. I mean, I'd much rather go to another country that I've been to so many countries that take care of the people in them.
Yes.
So
you've been to the country I'm in right now. Germany is just, it's not the cultural hotspot everybody thinks it is, but at the same time, people aren't fucking killing each other for a loaf of bread or anything, or cops aren't hanging you from the tree or anything.
Well, besides that, I mean, the majority of people are dying because they're just getting kicked out of the hospital.
Yeah.
No matter the age. Out of the town. Like, that's it. Yeah. So, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You got old people literally dying in wheelchairs. Can you imagine working in these buildings doing that? And then leaving them there and be like, well, it's my job. And I just always thought about that too. How the hell did Hitler get all these bastards to believe him? And media, it's time to start studying.
Yeah,
Why?
I want to share with you something really interesting that I just learned about those people. As soon as the World War II got over with, there was clinical psychologists trying to figure out how could he convince so many people that that all this stuff, And the truth is that there are mass sections of the population that are unable of critical thinking and have compartmentalized thinking where they only absorb the they accept what their authority figures tell them without question, and they also absorb what they think, their personal ideas and opinions from their peers and from the authority. They don't have a mind of their own. And so this can happen at any time during human history. That entire section of the population feels, well, they tell us that this is the new normal. And when we see homeless people on the street and we pass them by, we're basically taught to say, the people, this is their fault. The homeless people are there and it's their fault.
I know, it's not just India, right? We do that here, exactly. When I was saying it's part of a religious construct, it's, structs. It's just, exactly. If capitalism does it too, exactly.
Yeah.
Big destroyer.
Well, Karl Marx, I just read his just a little snippet from his Wikipedia, and it basically says right there, this man, he's getting popular. He said plainly that capitalism is flawed and one day is going to fail because the idea of growing endlessly is not rational, and we're at that point.
Right. Well, but that's for so many other things besides Karl Marx. Yeah. Not that anything from Karl Marx ideas. Yeah, we leave the. I'll just stop that. Anyway, I tell you, I make pictures. Look at that. There's an owl. I'm working on this owl. Oh, look at this goat. I've been doing a lot of goats, watercolors.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a sexy goat.
Yeah, baby. The
rectangular irises.
Well, honestly, too, I really love mythology. I studied a lot of mythology, so I had naturally gone towards a lot of Welsh mythology before I even found that stuff out. So I was, getting really deep into it, trying to study Ogham, the Irish writings, Gaelic, Welsh, Scottish writings, languages they all shared.
What's the best region for the occult? Because you study the occult, you're obsessed kind of with
New Orleans for the United States, the entire French founded this place on that, really. The 3090 is based on that. They had to trudge to get here just to make this occult place happen. And that's all I'll say about that. But this place is filled with every occult, hidden, so-called, that's what it means, I guess, so. But it's not hidden here.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the best place for the occult, but right now for me and my own blood lines, I'm drawn to Wales. I'm drawn to the history of the Wales. I like the Tuatha De Danann. I read the Mabinogion. I understand the Fomorians. I spent a lot of time studying Bible history too, growing up in the Midwest and everything. So I know a lot about the Bible. And I see parallels, that's all. With the mythology.
And what's the consensus? I just read recently that Moses, there was no proof that this fella actually existed, scientifically.
I don't want to get into that. There's no proof of a lot of things. If you really want to know just what science is kicking in archaeology and stuff, it's all borrowed from Sumeria. You can find it online. 10,000 of tablets, Genesis on. So no story is owned by one people. They're always borrowed, rewritten, resaid. The idea that, the earth started with Jewish people is Sumerian, Babylonian. This is where even our time comes from. I mean, everything, the 60s, uses of sixes. This is why it's written like that. I mean, just a lot of things like that. Adama, Zechariah Stitch, and I suppose he was the first one to actually break the code. What was it called? The writing, the cuneiform. And found all that out. And so there's a lot more to the story. And I collected all his books. Now there's like 35 other professors. He's dead. A lot of his stuff has been debated. But all of these stories, all the entire Old Testament, big mythology parts anyway, not the Deuteronomists, are borrowed. And we know that now. And archaeology has been, I watched the professors, the great courses, and the, archaeological professors from even Israel. And, there's not a lot there. So anyway, yeah. I've said too much.
Yeah. If you're curious, everybody, go down to your local library and ask the librarian to show you books on things.
Yeah.
So when you actually made it to Europe, who did you come to Europe with? Did you come out on some kind of musical tour, or what was going on when you came to Europe the first time?
I went there. The first time I was there was with a young woman named Sarah. We met in our bar, in my Irish bar I always hung out in New York, MoRUS. And we decided we were on a date there, and we decided we should go to Ireland together. So we did. And I traveled around all over the whole coast of Ireland, went to the oldest place in the earth, of Europe, I mean. And Inishmaan, Moore, the islands, everywhere, Cork County, down to Dingle. Seen Fungi in Dingle Bay, the pink dolphin. His name's Fungi. He chills in Dingle. You go up from there all around. Anyway, we had a great time. Went to some sacred sites. It was a blast. It was a crack.
Yeah. What was the best? What was the highlight? What was the highlight of Ireland?
The Irish people. I love them all. I love the atmosphere. I love the greenery. There's so many green. At that time there was no digital anything. I had these cameras and I took lots of photos. I still have a lot of those photos. I couldn't believe the green. I was on top of a castle all the time, everywhere, just constantly taking photos of the different shades of green. I ended up meeting up with a friend down in a town called Tussis, I think it was, in the Drumbohealy section of, maybe it was Cork. I was helping build a house there, and I was laying a block. We'd lay a line of block, and then here comes the rain. You put plastic over it, and you go back home. That was it every day. Did that a little bit. But no, I don't know. I guess later in life, after all those, went back to, I pretty much started going. I went to squat in Amsterdam. I opened up a building there in Amsterdam. I went to the Kraksbreker and the meetings. And, got to deal with a lot of fascist anarchists way before the internet. So it's like, that's why I hung out with Eastern Europeans, because they're more people. The ideals were always to the point where, well, we're going to hold back these lists and we won't let any foreign people into these buildings, keep it for ourselves. I'm like, hello, what do we call that? That's fascism. That's what we're fighting over here.
I'll tell you a story. When I first came to Europe, I was also meeting a friend, and I went on the the squatter circuit. I went to all these squats and stuff, and it says fuck racism, fuck written all over the walls, fuck sexism, fuck racism, and then a group of people came back who ran the place and asked me where I was from. They said, where are you from? I said, I'm from America. And they were like, fuck you, get the fuck out of here. We don't like dirty ammies. I said, but it says fuck racism on the wall. And they're like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. It don't matter. Yeah.
That's it.
I took out the hardcore ones, and then they were like, if you don't go to the hang out here, so you had to go to every eviction, which was a staged event by the police and the squatters every time. It was just so nice. Everything's just so let's play. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. Whatever. But yeah, it wasn't Ireland.
I mean, during that time, you used to tell me that there was guns and there was grenades and there was a pretty fierce resistance with those people against the police.
In New York?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they you can see it on CNN. They used tanks. Well, Giuliani did, and people don't realize this. He militarized the NYPD. It started there. Now it's every police in the United States, but it started in New York first for this 8-year reign of terror. So when the militarization happened, that's when everybody started getting murdered. This stuff, this is nothing. People were getting murdered left and right. Children, mostly Black, Puerto Rican, just everybody was getting murdered in and around the housing projects. And I was doing artwork for the sons and daughters that were murdered, for the mothers who would meet on October 22nd, Anti-Police Brutality Day, it used to be called, in Union Station. But they were murdered. Yang Shin-yang, Anthony Baez, Aswan Watson. Everybody remembers Amadou Diallo. These were the same thing that today that kickstarted a lot of BLM was and had already been going on. So a lot of people don't know because of media that it's, been something that people poor suffer from for a long time.
Sure.
They had automatic weapons. They used tanks on us. They had sniper rifles. They'd use other buildings. It became a military zone. Yeah. Yes. Helicopters, a whole bit. So you see my friend Cheese. He was on the roof of the eviction. He was literally flipping out on the roof. So he was on CNN. My mom was at home. She called me or something. I talked to her on the payphone or something. She was like, I saw those tanks. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I was living in a war zone, so I thought the rest of America knew, By the time I got to Brazil and came back, everything, the conscious memory, the conscious collective, or as there used to be the club that Fly used to run, the collective unconscious, I think it was called. We used to perform there and bang on metal. But it's just shot. Put up a new plaque, and that's the new history, and forget everything that ever happened before. Like, it's just crazy.
What's the plaque say?
No, I'm just saying they renamed the neighborhood East Village. It was always called Loisaida. They even have songs about it, struggle songs, a brief history of like maybe some of the revolutionary stuff that happened there. But generally, it's just overlooked. That's why MoRUS exists, Museum of Recycled Urban Space. It's actually in the storefront of C-Squad. And so they have big openings there, and they talk about Bill Time's Up that started the whole bicycle thing, the Time's Up. He's the one that started that, and he's the one that runs that. So, the bicycle mobilization stuff that swept across America, yeah. But the history of all the squats in New York,
and the building, and then the hyper gentrification of Lower Manhattan altogether.
Oh, the whole island, the boroughs, even everywhere. I mean, it slowly started there. But when I was a kid and I worked construction in Brooklyn off the first stop in the L on Bedford, none of that was there. That became the biggest explosion ever in the history of my life, seeing that, because every sign used to be Czech and Polish all the way down. Wow. They weren't even English. I had to order. That's why I used to remember ordering Sody Wody, and that's what a Coke was, stuff like that from the menu. I used to work on Kent. Like, that place was not even. There was no rich honky anywhere. Hell, they wouldn't even speak. They were speaking Eastern European over there. Yeah.
Oh shit.
So that was the biggest explosion, and then it got to the point where everybody lived in Brooklyn and nobody lived in New York anymore, which is crazy because that's not the way it used to be, and everything switched around. And now for the rest of the past 20 years, where are you from? Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn. Everybody said I'm from Brooklyn. It's because they just moved out of there. There's some gentrifier to begin with. So, whatever. People move here, the musicians especially ones that already come from money. They move here just so they can put it on their internet, My ex works for one of those people. It's just insane. It's just like, you bought a house in Treme, you gentrify everything. You put all those people in your videos and you go back to LA or whatever. It's just crap.
Yeah.
It's so bad. But nobody knows. Nobody cares. Property doesn't matter like the way it used to be because community doesn't mean the same thing.
No.
The newspeak is what's driving me crazy. It wasn't, friendly fire was enough.
And the slots that were used to be reserved for, artists on record labels or, art scenes that were fucking underground and edgy and stuff like that. We don't have that anymore. We have squares who fill that slot or whatever. But music is pretty much has the nutritional value of a Twinkie. It's terrible.
Well, it always takes exactly the same example as squatting, though, and this is something I've learned from my travels as well. It always takes the one individual, like your friend from Bristol, that just says, F it, I'm going to go out every day and just act like a wingnut, do the thing. And that's what starts these moves to begin with. And so until people understand that direct action isn't just cutting locks and squatting, but it's the direct action of your daily life, to actually live it like it's your last in some way that is meaningful, then you start those
Yeah.
things. You know, we used to have the underground parties in New York, and I love the Village Voice, but they wrote about them all a little too much. You know, before the internet, writing, cameras. You know how many cameras just come down to the Lower East Side? I must have smacked 5, 6 different cameras out of people's hands. And my community wants me to do that.
Yeah.
But, you know, not anymore.
Yeah. The thing is, when you start seeing people moving in who look like they come from New York, they're hipsters from you know, you start setting things on fire. That's just what you have to do to keep, maintain your.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
it's all California too. It's like the money came from Silicon Valley. It changed the money of the planet. Like really, the headquarters of Bitcoin and anything coin, and crypto and anything federal and anything before all of it has all been Silicon Valley for a while now.
Well, the story
So
I came.
Not even gentrified. That's what gentrified New York was Californians. I literally was watching them buy entire buildings. These 30-year-olds, 20-something-year-olds that were rich off the .com explosion. That was the thing. It was. I'm not joking. I know it sounds like East Coast, West Coast, but California, everywhere I go in the world, here especially, 5 companies have bought all California-based. Everybody in Bywater is from California.
Yeah.
I rarely run into a New Yorker. Hell, you rarely run into them anyway. They're a dying breed. They've been pushed out, even in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even going to exist anymore. You know, it's like Rome taking over another city, even in Italy.
Well, you get down to the heart of it, man. These people have made off with all the money anyway, and so and there's no laws against them opening. They can own as many properties as they want, and so you've got blocks and blocks of empty fucking houses in San Francisco and New York where people could be living,
and here,
and there,
empty houses.
And where I'm at.
Yeah, I know. It's bad. And so that was the whole point of why I became a squatter to begin with anyway. You know, housing should be a human right, not some kind of special gift or trait or some superiority complex that so many people have, especially when they come through the education system. That was my ex again. God, sorry to talk about it, but Jesus. So much holier than thou because of a degree. When everybody suffered during COVID, make more money because you work in the universities. Everybody worked at universities, made more money. She was carpetbagging house and everything else from people who lost their houses. I mean, I can't understand it.
Yeah.
And somehow and still maintain a superiority complex over everyone. Like,
well, in America, intellectuals who go to college come from wealthy families, and they are not they're not necessarily exposed to trauma. And trauma is the number one fucking character builder.
People have so much trauma. Oh, don't ever say that. I've been schooled in this. They've all had therapists. I lived with them for a while.
Give me a break.
Give me a break. Out of that environment back downtown. So they all the time they want to tell you about how much therapy's good and how it's good for you and how you should do it. You know, and there's some truth in it. But at the same time, that's what the fuck community was for. That was my therapy. That was my mentor. It wasn't all of them like, you know, sticks of dynamite. Plenty of people with mothers and children and people that I hung out with that, you know, schooled me as well. I would walk down the street as a teenager with my head down and older men in my community teaching me to keep my head up when I walk forward. That's real stuff that happened to me on the reg-up. But not anymore, you know. I can't even talk to a young kid like that. He'd be like, get the hell out.
You know? Yeah.
But it's just, you know, really that's the root of the problem is just the breakdown of community and the replacement of community through the internet. Everybody's got more of an internet connection.
Right.
They all have jobs.
And you touched on something very important there, and you say, but you call it the lack of community, and I call it individualism gone way too far, where people are, every bit of money that you can make, society gives you this idea that being alone is the thing that you need to do. And when you're rich, you don't need to accept criticism from anybody. You insulate yourself from criticism when you become too rich.
What to do. Exactly. That's what their therapist tells them to do, that they pay.
Right.
Money validates anything. So you give money you give money to professionals that tell you what you want to hear.
Right.
It ain't just poor people with the preachers. It's the rich people with the therapists. Same shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so check out my NFTs, owlmanstudio.com. Check out my artwork. Check out my music. Check out my creative flow. All this stuff, I don't live in the past. I put it behind me. There's a book you can read about this stuff. It's by Margaret Morton. It's called Glass House by Pennsylvania Press. It's all this squat stuff is literally used in universities throughout. My life story has been used in the universities. And she's a professor at Cooper Union and NYC, so she's very, on point with that and how she covered us. We allowed her in when we were kids. We didn't allow anybody else. She's the one that photographed and did the book, The Mole People.
I've seen that
movie, Dark Days. Yeah, that's her. So she already had buku clout with the homeless. Or I'm saying buku, New Orleans, mad clout in New York.
I mean, it's a tough crowd to get into.
Yeah. The homeless scene is so easy.
Yeah.
You got to know somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if you try to pay them off, it's going to have the reverse effect. Most people come in, they say, "Well, I'll give you $5 if you tell me your story." I'm like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But we've been in
squats. I got there's books about it. There's movies about it. I'm in some underground movies about it.
Well, more people.
I got near the end. I had to go to 2 places to show up for court. I was literally getting picked up by the NYPD at my squat to go to court every 2 weeks or something by these thick neck during the end of the Giuliani administration. I mean, my whole life, police was running. It was insane. Plus, I got jumped by a bunch of off-duty police officers. I had a contusion on my brain. It took me 8 months to heal. I had a lot of pain and suffering that I had to go through all that those years. And so when they offered me my apartment, I had $1 million apartment, and I gave it away to live here before Katrina. Because it was just like Bahia, back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Everybody brown. I was a minority again and very accepting. I loved to dance. All I did for years was just dance. I didn't paint much. I didn't draw much. I just danced. I definitely didn't play clarinet. I hadn't learned as well yet. So getting in with the people here was like being in Brazil. It was like being in Bahia. It was the same thing, like in a lot of ways. The violence was high, but so was the love, And
you also have big brass bands.
Yeah. And second lines every Sunday, we still do. And it's the same in Brazil. Every day you've got those drum bands running through the streets, samba bands,
Yep.
Little kids too. Huge surdos and big bass drums. It's adorable. Same shit here. It's great,
Yeah. And you could get murdered at any time, which is part of the charm.
At any time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just like on the streets of New York or in Brazil, you always want to know the right people. I mean, here it's gentrified. It's not so much like that now, but used to be everything was wards, unlike other parts of the United States. It's a skinny strip that goes from the river to the lake. And you didn't come out of your ward, even though it would be like 30 blocks long. You didn't go 4 blocks this way, that way, depending on the ward,
Yeah. This
my
becomes
phone just went low power mode.
All right, let's take a pause then. So what was one of your first encounters as a young man with the police where you could tell that these people may not be on your side completely?
Well, the way my mom tells me, they were standing in the room when I was born. I wasn't breathing. And they had to duck me in water to make me breathe. So I never trusted them bastards. I came out bloody crying. I heard it's a common thing. This weird flesh thing stuck to me. It's messed up, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Cops have always been around. Cops have always, but God, they're always around when you're broke, when you're living in a poor neighborhood. When you grow up in these neighborhoods, they're always, I don't know. Jeez, I don't know. But on my own, I was in juvie hall. I kept getting locked up when I was a kid for just trying to run away. And that was my crime. And I went to a lot of gangbanging high schools. So I was locked up with murderers and drug dealers for just trying to get away from them. That's America.
Yeah.
For poor folks,
Yeah.
And then my time, kids from my class, you had this thing called punk rock. So thank God for that. So that was my community. And then, of course, punk rock everywhere in America. I traveled. Cops didn't like it very much. One time I was at a diner in Alabama and they drove me all the way to Mississippi line and dropped me off. Don't come back now. Yeah, that literally happened. Cops F with us in New York. It's put us in a back seat, make us sit for their whole like 6-8 hour shift, take our ID and throw it. Then knowing that if for the rest of the time I'm there, I can go to jail now because I have no ID. All kinds of shit. One time I was drunk and I got busted for graffiti, and I was so drunk I was cracking the cops up, I guess, in the back seat of the car. My friend tells me later, he was a bartender and we both got in trouble for it. So they thought it was funny to put me, Mr. Hilarious, in a cell all by myself, and then put him in the cell right across with like 40 guys. All the cells empty, like gentrification, same shit. And so I just rolled with it. I was drunk. I just laid down in the crowd like, my buddy was like pushed up against the bar staring at me like, you motherfucker, like all kinds of shit like that, like it's just, they used to get away with a lot more too,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now everybody's even they got cameras, whether they like it or not. Everybody's got cameras. But the whole idea of defunding the police, how bad it is compared to like those stories, and then what's happening now, and then I just read about something. I didn't know if it was true. I had to look it up. But like, what's going on in Seattle? I don't know, man. I don't even want to talk about this shit. I want to talk about art and music. Because everybody's got an opinion, and it's all based already on the internet. You just hit the like button, and now it's you. And I just don't even want to. It's hard to talk about these things when everything is politicized. When my generation and generations before me of direct action, do-it-yourself people, all that stuff that created DIY, we fought to destroy labels, completely destroy labels. This generation cannot make them fast enough, more divisive, more anti-community with their labels than anything I've ever seen. If I even saw this when I was a kid and got into punk rock, there's no way I would have joined, these labels the way they're so quick to do them today. It's the peer pressure of it too. It's like you're fascist if you don't join the labels, it's insane. Yeah. It's insane. So it's bad, man.
That's that divisiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. What the cops used to do to me, now the regular rich kid hipster, because who the hell is doing these labels but the rich kids? All the working class poor people are working and paying court fines still for something, paying court fines for something. They don't have time to sit around and type up new ideas for words for themselves. Bullshit. Call it out. It's a class difference, and it's egotistical, self-righteous shit. And you can't even talk about
when you bicker about the language, points on language and stuff like that, you're coming from a point of privilege. You're coming from a point of luxury. If you can worry about who is called what in what's,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And it's just, yeah.
But look, these people are being handed these identities through the internet, They're just, I know. They take the outrage of the things that they see on the internet and they polarize themselves to one side, and then
I had to explain science to my nephew, because all young people are only getting influenced by other young people. And it's like I said before, they put their face down here and they put a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson or somebody intelligent talking, and then now it's that person, like it's me. It's insane. So by cutting out the elders completely, which they've done in this country more than anywhere, which is what I always wanted to be. Like, I have these experiences. I can't wait to take that role someday to be able to like organize and do things. But you can't know. That's been robbed for me, honestly. It's like you can't. Yeah, at my age net group and then older, for all of our experiences, for all our DIY direct action. And I already know that when I was a kid, I only wanted to hang out with older people that did those things. Now Not so much. You got a phone that tells you everything, and old people suck, no matter what
Wow.
they did.
And people suck. You know, people are becoming more intolerant of each other at a rapid
That's what
rate.
I'm saying. The divisiveness. Yeah. So no matter how many times I've been beaten, locked up by the police, whether it be about my beliefs or just being of that class,
Hmm.
it's null and void right now. I say it's just something that in this country, especially, I don't know I haven't been across the pond in a while, as they say, but I'm due for a visit.
Yeah, well, you come on over. Well, we've definitely lost a lot of those things too. The simple things like asking for directions, that'll never happen again.
Sure.
Asking somebody what time it is, calling a friend because you need to know some specific information about how he fucking bakes his cookies or he applied for a fucking visa. You can
The
do it
only, yeah,
without him.
right. The only reason I have anything like that here is I live in a majority tourist city. So all the time, where should we eat? Where's this? Where's that? I do get those questions because
Mm.
also we are allowed to do day drinking. So the combination, I think, allows people to not, oh, I just asked this guy, and then it works.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at least we do have, actually, New Orleans, more I think about it, still is more, it's a younger people that moves here from other places. All the races that have moved here from other places are bringing a higher gentry, a higher class of money, a higher opinion of themselves, and eroding the massive amount of diversity and how people got along down here. It's really sad. They would never know that. They would never know that. So that's really true for a lot of the major cities in this country now. It's just not the same. You read people's history of the United States and you learn like how black and white was on the same class and fought together and took over entire states in this union. You'd never know that. So they figured that out. The Book of Faces has done it all. And we're all doing it for ourselves, against ourselves. So, and
What's that fella's name wrote that book? Zinn?
what?
Did you say
Howard
that?
Zinn, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Howard Zinn, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then, the arguments for not watching television was really easy. I probably have it right over here, too. Absence of the Sacred. I think his name was I think his name was Jerry Mander.
Nice.
Is that right? Of the Sacred. Anyway, it just talked about what happened when the TV showed up to all the different native tribes all over America and even in the Inuits. First-hand accounts of what happened when in the 70s they were showing Dallas and all these soap operas. People that never had any of these things, never had those possessions, never had jealous and trauma like that, all of a sudden was coveting each other's wives and doing these things because they were watching it on TV. I mean, aping is a verb. We are apes. I'm not related to monkeys. We are primates. There's a big difference in science and the way religious belief is. So that's why all that other stuff we were talking about, manufacturing consent and all that stuff, and how they're able to do it today. I mean, it's very obvious. Nobody wants to read the Mueller report, man. Yo, that was a graphic novel, and I collect those. The involvement in the movements in this country by Russia and China is super real. But because the platform of individualism is so much higher, to even accept the wrongs is impossible, which is why I also like science. Science is always accepting wrong. They just figured out that it wasn't even a Big Bang like last month, after I already bought the entire Neil deGrasse Cosmos thing, so or Origins.
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta find the book, but it's just crazy to think about because, yeah, gerrymander, absence of the sacred. This was one that was passed around. This is even a copy that's passed around by everybody.
Uh-huh.
Jerry, absence of the sacred. The first-hand account. I mean, nothing gives you a skewering critique of modern technology in which cars, telephones, computers, banks, biogenetics, and television are all shown to be part of a mad mega technology that is destroying the world's resources and roboticizing its people. Already, the metaverse and the internet, this was already happening with television, as for mention. It changes people. You watch what happens. You read what happens to the Yanomami in Brazil. My God, man, it's sick. We are apes. the stuff that we went through in America with Tipper Gore and all that stuff, and putting labels on things. I mean, the whole emergence of rap out. I came out of hip hop culture in New York, all that Puerto Rican, black, poor white, everybody together under Zulu Nation and positivity and all that stuff. De La Soul, all the original stuff, the leaders of the new school, blah 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 blah. That was the origins. I happened to be there for that whole time. Even went to table meetings and talked and diverse and talked, and everybody shared ideas direct, face to face through hip hop. The creation of rap and California and all that stuff has been the demise of people ever since.
Yeah.
When you make it culture to kill.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. It's bad here, and people don't realize it.
I don't know.
With simple things.
And it has to be an organized effort to have there be absolutely no black role models. When the death of Afrocentricity and that De La Soul and all that stuff, when gangster rap came around, that was it. And those record producers knew it.
Who started NWA? Who was the manager behind it? I watch these videos that talk about it now on Netflix, and they praise them. They praise them like, and these dudes did not have automatic weapons. Ice Cube was a weed dealer. Like, it's just insane. It's just insane, the betrayal and the bullshit of Eazy-E and all these people. It's insane. It's insanely wrong.
It's theater that would scare the parents.
It affected the entire planet. To this day, I have a documentary, DVD documentary, shows about rap culture in Germany, where they even dress up gold teeth, get guns, cap knuckles, and everybody's trying to act like that 1980, that early shit. It's crazy.
But the world is. They gave us "fuck the police," though. They gave us "fuck the police." That was the good thing.
The same guy that said "fuck the police" started a whole "fuck the police" thing. Ended up being a fucking actor on a goddamn cop show.
Oh, that's right. How you like that?
So, I mean, come on, man. Everybody's for sale. Even the super hardcore stuff. I even went to the shows. I don't know, it's talking about this stuff, man. But I'm telling you, like, living in the Zulu nation of the hip hop in New York and actually being a participant as a squatter, as doing these things, having the respect of my community, going to underground hip hop shows, even in Chicago, going to b-boy events, helping organize b-boy events. I'm a graffiti artist. This is all part of the elements, you dig? So none of it has anything to do with the commonality of what people think now. The destruction of oneself was the exact opposite of hip hop, and now that's all it's become for a reason. It's even into the headphones you buy.
Dude, the current hip hop only upholds capitalist beliefs to an insane degree, where it's like exploitative of women, exploitative of people. It's about making money above everything else.
Your fellow man.
Narcissism.
Exactly. Death culture is long time. They by any means necessary. Malcolm X become by any means necessary to your fellow man. Like, it's just the drive-by shootings, all that stuff. So it's really bad here. The gunfire every day, rounds and rounds of ammunition, block and a half, from my house. I mean, it's just really bad. But the difference is, and this is when I went to public school, and this is how bad California affected the whole planet, especially America, Crips and Bloods. And so out of Chicago and all that LA shit that happened ruined my family's life. They had to move. Yeah. So, I watched teachers get beat in high school with like big fire extinguishers. The Crips and Bloods thing just took over and never went away. Whereas in New York and in New Orleans, they have their own black communities that, well, I don't know about New York today anyway, but push that out. It generally pushed that out. You don't have so much Bloods and Crips in New Orleans. People running their own wards forever, Whereas the rest of the United States, the world. And I went to school that forks up, forks down, everybody Snoop Dogg, everybody loves this demon, man. They're demons. I don't get it. The demon is inside, man. And we honor the worst parts about ourselves. So, anyway.
Well, this particular, like, we all have empathy built into us, where people do have something in them without having to work on it or experience anything specific. They can empathize with another human being, because animals can do it. But on the flip side, this specific economic system rewards sociopaths. And so,
Yeah,
so
not
people,
pathetic.
so people that aren't even high up in the hierarchy still want to be higher in the hierarchy, so they exhibit these traits and they exhibit them aggressively. And so, and it's the death of if it's people overriding their own common sense, like when they pass
Once you,
homeless people and say, not
yeah,
my problem.
right. Yeah, I mean, really, but there's so many esoteric things that we take for granted, like talking and writing and all of this stuff. You got to read the book, um, Alphabet versus the Goddess by Leonard Shlain. Talks about the hemispheres, what it was like when we were more image-based. The whole world used to work. Yahweh had a wife, like back to the religious mythology that I love so much. I mean, everybody doesn't really understand the root history of like how much writing changed things and, made certain aspects of our brains take over. But when the music alone is such a sacred thing of the spheres and all of this truth is being used in such a negative way, and that people want it, like fast food, it's addictive. This is a mouth. Yeah, this is your stomach, and this is the shit that comes out. Those are ancient Babylonian teachings. This stuff comes from Zoroastrianism, but it's lost in the new world where everybody's in the youngest country that knows everything, and it's just retarded. Yeah. So we can't understand that in our courts. We can't understand that still, that our children and everybody's affected by this stuff. To control it is fascism, even though now all the left is trying to control it and everybody in the right is trying to control control as a whole. But, there's still ancient truths that are being ignored because of anyism, socialism, capitalism, all they all do that. They all ignore it for the state, for the commonwealth, for the... Mm-hmm. So, these are that's what it comes down to. Individualism, autonomy. It's a thing. And, people all the time online chakra building and meditate, and you'll serve. There's a truth to that. Like if you work on yourself, you'll actually affect others in a positive way instead of just talking about, becoming World War III all the time, which is what they want to talk, Yeah. So I'm trying to get on that tip. I don't talk about the past so much. I probably spent more time today talking about it than ever because of these reasons. Because honestly, it stirs a lot of things up and it just makes me upset because I know the limits that I've pushed in myself and I don't want to judge others because they're afraid. But when others want to tell me who I am based on things that I don't have control of, the skin you're in, the gender you're born with, whatever, then this becomes the fascist thought that I've already learned to stay away from. Let it be the merits of the person. Let it be the heart, the words of Martin Luther and anybody else that has to do with understanding the bigger truth of autonomousness. You cannot tell me that my autonomousness, I had dated a woman that went to the university and they were teaching a long time ago that all, in our Black history studies, and that all white people were born with racist genes. And this was at IU in like 96, 95, when I traveled back and forth. And I got up and said something. I'm like, well, I come from a huge, large mixed family. I got black cousins, that guy, I got aunts, you name it, Mexican, everybody. We all from the same class. I was running away from racists because they were attacking my family, when I was a kid with my other cousins. I grew up with that. And so they didn't want to hear it. They're just trying to make it. And I had a problem with that then. And that was, 30 years ago. Close to it, 27 years ago. So,
that's the worst.
Trying to get something in.
That's like the worst scientific, thing I've ever heard because there's no way that that's true because it's all based on. How much these kids gotta
pay to learn this shit?
It's just the truth is it's based off of tribalism and xenophobia and the fear of the unknown. It's natural. Racism is natural.
Anybody in comfort. The idea that all white people are raised in comforts and all black people are not is the most insane shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
So
I had somebody
middle class, the majority, because they are the smallest percentage, more people are buying into that than ever before because they really think, without their experiences of the police, without their experiences of actually having to fight next to a poor person.
Right. And I had this experience with somebody who was on this. She was somebody who I would consider to have a fascist left-wing temperament, where I explained to her that there's no such thing as reverse racism, and I said, if I go down to Mexico and they treat me like shit because I'm white, she says that's not racism, that's just justice or something like this. I'm like,
I know they're just doing
that's
that now.
just
I was dealing with kids here, and I stopped playing with them because my friend, it's a mostly black, and a few of us white, and we all play together. And he said, "Don't leave town. Get somebody." He got somebody who I think was like Peruvian even. Dude comes back, boy, they hate Mexican. Never hired a goddamn Mexican on this man. And I mean, this dude's, black jazz musician from the families, from the city, just hated Mexicans. Kept saying Mexican. I was like, shut the fuck up. I got tired of it. Yeah. I'm the only one that says something. I'm just like, all the time in my life, I'm the only one that says something. I'm like, shut the fuck up. They expect me to say that, you know? I had another guy screaming at me about the spot, even though that this is the people that have been holding that spot forever. And he's a black dude with a saxophone. I had met him when he came back from Paris. He had been gone a long time, but he wanted the spot. And he decided when he didn't see a certain guy come yell at me. Everybody had their cameras out. I'm from here. You ain't from here. I lost it. I was like, I'm glad you have that privilege. I've never had the privilege of being from somewhere. You get it? Never had that privilege. I was always an outsider everywhere I went in this country. Everybody, white, black, it didn't matter. They all hated me because I ain't from their city. I ain't from their state. I ain't from their, it's fucking nuts, man. And I guess he shut up. We shut up and everything went back to normal, but I guess it went viral. And another brass band kid I know came up to me and was like, yo, I saw what you said. Yeah, it went viral. Good for you. I got more likes on the thing, I guess. But I couldn't take it anymore. It's just like, you're literally yelling about your privilege to tell people to stop trying to make money, you know? Like, the fact that you're from somewhere is a privilege. The fact that you're born in a house and have a house. Travel the earth, people. Fuck off. You got more money than most people on the earth. You got more privilege. You all got cars. Everybody got fucking house. Everybody got so many rights. I go anywhere else, not so much, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not even, I have people hang out with poor people, whether I'm in Latin America or Europe, it's the same thing. They're always going to be based on that.
Right.
You know, I played with a millionaire guy from the city, and he's, from the city, brown, and was hated by all the other brown people because he was born rich. You just hear all these, really always about cats.
So nobody can take the time to back. You got to back up and see the bigger picture, which most people don't. Is that there is a deep xenophobic hatred, or deep within the heart of every man, every person.
Exactly. And that is it. Exactly. So by changing the labels ain't going to change nothing. All this stuff. I mean, come on. The wording is bad enough, sure, but the match cap is when people actually get together, work and organize, and out of necessity. All those things have been eradicated. Even the necessity to do these things. We didn't get water from the fire hydrant. We didn't have electricity. We had to work together because of necessity. Anyway,
well,
it's just sad, my country, it's filled with all the nations of the earth, and it's going to divide even more. And so I don't really want anything to do with it, even though I had everything in the world to do with it. I've worked for anti-racist action all over the United States and Canada. I'm banned from Canada for life, just on the material I brought in there. So, I did my part. I've had enough. I've been to jail for my beliefs. I've been beaten for my beliefs, and my beliefs are still the same. It's just that everybody around me doesn't even know what side they're on.
All right. Well, we've been chatting with Chadmo for a while. We're going to cut it short, and we're going to come back next time. There's my good friend Sal is in the background. We're going to have an interview with him coming up soon. But everybody out there, we just want to wave goodbye to you and say, keep watching.
Stay out of jail.
Stay out of jail and keep watching the skies.
Yes.